So we go on with Tal Adler, an artist, photographer, curator and researcher based in Israel and Vienna since a few years already, and currently also working at CARMAH, which you probably all know, the Center for Anthropological Research on Museums and Heritage, based at the Ethnological Institute here at the Humboldt-Universität. He has studied at the Akademie der Bildenden Künste in Vienna, and his artistic research projects mostly focus on the topic of commemorative culture and also politics. From 2012 to 16, he worked at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna, conducting artistic research on the politics of memory and display in Austria, focusing on difficult heritage like art marginal and at marginal and established museums, landscapes, and commemorial sites, and within civic society organizations, once again, as we had yesterday. One of the projects from 2013 is called Art-Based Research Project Memscreen, another Vor Gericht, Cases Reopened, 8 Fälle, 8 Fotos, just to give you a scope. But today, he gives you, and also I have to introduce a little bit that, to tell you that Anna Söcke is also here, also from the Humboldt-Universität, a joint team member, and together they are in a current artistic research project called Dead Images, an interdisciplinary art-based research on human remains, namely on a collection of 40,000 human skulls kept at the anthropological department at the Natural History Museum in Vienna. It's a transdisciplinary project of artistic and scientific research collaborations between 6 people. I guess you will tell us a bit more about this. It's part of a bigger project funded by the European Union called Traces, a 3-year project, and I leave everything else to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Anita, for the invitation. It's not only a difficult panel, I have a difficult task because I have to talk about 2 projects which are very complicated, and also it's very hard for artists usually to talk about something that is still a work in progress. And I will talk about an exhibition that I actually haven't exhibited yet, so bear with me. And in order to keep with the time, I just decided I'll just read everything directly from the computer so I know that I'm in time. I also have a timer so you don't have to tell me the time, so we go right ahead. So the project that I present here is concerned with 2 collections at the Natural History Museum in Vienna. A collection of human remains and a photographic collection. Both belong to the anthropology department. One note before I begin, this presentation contains some images of skulls in the collection. Now, as some people might be offended by these images, especially as they might contain indigenous ancestral remains. Actually, we know that they contain ancestral indigenous remains. I masked and blurred them, except of when they are really, really small, that they are anyway abstracted. However, this is not only a technical notice, because one of the main aspects of our project is not only the question of the display of human remains, but also mainly the display of images of human remains. This, by the way, is a screenshot from TripAdvisor website. The photo that I masked here with the red was probably uploaded by a user, and I will get to it later. But before I talk about dead images, I have to say a few words about Traces, to give you Traces is the let's say, top-level project, to give you the framing or the infrastructure. So Traces, the title is Transmitting Contentious Cultural Heritage with the Art from Intervention to Co-Production. I wish I could talk more about this idea of beyond intervention, because it's so relevant to everything that has been discussed here, but maybe in another time, or just check out the website. It's over there. But basically, it's a 3-year project funded by the EU under their Horizon 2020 program. We have 11 partner institutions in 10 European countries. And as the title suggests, we explore models of artistic and scientific collaborations that engage with difficult cultural heritage. Traces is centered around 5 teams or 5 projects that we call creative co-productions, or in short, CCPs. So from now on, I'll refer to CCPs. Our starting point is some inherent problems or challenges that we feel artistic residencies and interventions in heritage institutions usually face. One of the main, I mean, there are many issues that we recognized, and many of them actually surfaced here as well, but I can't go into it. But one of the main things is the very brief time that is usually given to artists and also to the people that collaborate with them to work, to do research and production. But I'm mainly talking about difficult heritage. A CCP, what is a CCP? As you can see, it's an interdisciplinary team of artists, researchers, heritage agencies, museum sites, phenomena. Sorry, jumped. Ah, yeah, no, that's okay. So artists, researchers, and stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I mean individuals or institutions who are also affected by the heritage in question. They work together over long-term engagements through mutual, equal, and non-hierarchical relations. And what's important is that they share both the creative and the research processes. And the main goal is to actually strive for or achieve significant and sustainable. Sustainability also came up here. For traces, we set up 5 CCPs, and the project that I will talk about is one of the CCPs. And I just mentioned in one word that there is also the structure of work packages. This is an EU terminology, but what we mean with work packages are actually research questions or meta questions about different aspects of those CCPs. And the idea is of a multi-channel and multi-directional stream of knowledge between the CCPs and the work packages to support and also to theorize the work of the CCPs. So that's it with traces. And dead images is one of the CCPs. We're CCP4. And as you can see from the list, we are a multidisciplinary team. Anna is here with us. But you can also see that Maria Teschler-Nicola is part of the team. And this means that the Natural History Museum itself is part of the team. Maria Teschler-Nicola was until last year the head of the anthropology department at the museum. So she was also the head of these 2 collections that we work with. Closer? Could I get maybe a glass of water? Thanks. So the museum in Vienna, super, thanks. The museum in Vienna was opened, like many other museums, in the late 19th century, 1889. Anthropologists actually played a crucial role in the founding of this museum, and it is still the residence of the Anthropological Society in Vienna. The osteological collection of the anthropology department contains over 40,000 human skulls collected from all over the world. Now, most of these skulls come from archaeological excavations, and they are prehistorical. But a few thousands of them were acquired under very problematic or questionable circumstances, of course, in the context of racial science and colonialism. Many of the skulls are organized on shelves in tall and long cabinets all over the department. The collection is labeled as a research collection and is not part of the museum official exhibition. However, museum visitors who take the night tour or the rooftop tours are guided through one of these long cabinets that stretches over a very long hallway. And this probably explains the image that I showed in the first slide. Again, a blurred image, but in this long hallway glass-faced cabinet, thousands of skulls are organized in open boxes on shelves according to their inventory numbers. Writing on the boxes, as well as often on the skulls themselves, refer to inventory numbers, place of origin, gender, race, and other identifying data. The rest of the skeletons, the rest of the body, and other dozens of thousands of skulls that are not inventoried yet are stored in boxes in various storage spaces of the museum. And yes, these are banana boxes. So a little bit about the project. In 2009, Margit Berner, who is a researcher at the anthropology department in the museum, introduced me to the collection. It was the first time I saw anything like this, and I was blown away, amazed, shocked, impressed, and confused, and all at the same time. Margit talked about the history of the collection, and I stared at one of the skulls, examining its features very closely. I then looked carefully at the skull next to it. I clearly saw how different and unique each one was. It might sound obvious to some, but until then I had a very generic concept of skull in mind, like a skull as a symbol. I've never seen a real skull so close before, and here I was surrounded by thousands of them. I started thinking about the people they used to be, how each had a name, a life with passions, love stories, families, projects, problems. The dissonance between the sense of individuality and the way they were ordered there on the shelves and the gigantic scale of the collection was overwhelming. So this stayed with me for a while, and then I decided to organize an exhibition and a program around a life-size image of this long cabinet, a life-size photograph of this long cabinet. Now I have here, how do I scroll the text? Okay. Yeah, but during the first 2 years, from 2009 to 11, even though I tried to get access to the collection and I even met with the general director at that time, the doors of the museums remained closed. But fortunately, 2011, as Mareike mentioned, me and some colleagues in Vienna received artistic research funding from the Austrian Research Fund. They have a special program for arts-based research. It's called PEAK. And we were based at the Art Academy, and with my new status, and also with the help of a new director that actually came to the museum right at the same time, we approached this new general director, and finally I did get access to the museum. And in 2012, I actually photographed this panorama. This is me shooting at the skull cabinet. That's the very last section of the cabinet. And by the time the panorama was stitched, because the panorama is composed out of 120 individual cells of this cabinet, but the time it was ready and stitched, it was already the end of our funding. It was 2013. But luckily, we received another project funding from the same fund. And then Anna Süke, an art historian who joined the project. And together, we extended the research. We deepened our relationship with Maria, and we looked for partners and venues for the exhibition. So we had very interesting meetings in the US and the UK with institutions and similar collections or other museums, but it was very, very difficult to find a place or partners that were interested in both the image, but also the program and contextualizing the history. So then our project, the second project already came to an end, but we started working on conceiving traces, and luckily we also won traces. So actually the skulls, I was dragging them from one funded project to another, and this was already the third project that the skulls are with us. And this is the panorama, a very, very small version of it, because it's a life-size photograph that should be 30-meter long, so it's longer than this room, and 3-meter high. And there are a few very interesting things about the panorama, but I would like to draw your attention to the doors in the more or less the middle of the panorama. And the middle door was the entrance to the photographic laboratory of the department. It was founded by Josef Wastel. I don't know if anyone here knows Josef Wastel. He was the director of the department during National Socialism. He was, of course, he was an early Nazi who, after becoming a director, he concentrated really the focus of the department on racial research. He also made an exhibition about Jews from a scientific point of view in '39. He also acquired skulls of executed Jews and Poles from the Medical Institute in Posen in '42, and so on, which we could do a whole conference about Wastel, but what I do want to emphasize here, that he was also a very enthusiastic and avid photographer. He used photography and film for his research, and he even made an exhibition at the Natur, the Natural History Museum in Vienna, about the scientific value of photography. So the department's huge photographic collection that consists also of thousands of photographs of Wastel and other colleagues of their racial investigations is nowadays stored exactly behind these doors. So we have here a very interesting situation of two very complicated, very difficult collections, one inside the other. And also another interesting point in this panorama that actually, if you look at the top left side, this is the first inventory numbers of the collection. Yeah? So we have, in this photograph, you have the history of this kind of science and the entanglement between photography and anthropology. Now I just have to come out of this for a second. I don't have a mouse in this mode anyway. So some of it I will have to do freestyle. I hope I'll remember everything that I wanted to say. Yeah. So basically, as a photographer, when I realized that photography is really also at the heart, literally, of this collection, the field of photography itself became a very important field for me to relate to. Gradually, the way CCP4 started looking at these collections and at this project was more and more about the importance of photography in the history of science. And gradually, our project turned into an exhibition that actually questions itself. However, with or without the panorama, the exhibition is developed with the concept of multiple perspectives. So it's not only that the panorama is composed out of 120 perspectives, the whole concept is multiple perspectives, and we kind of divided it into four axes, four foci. And on one hand, we have the stakeholders' perspectives, and this means, on one hand, we will have the perspectives of the scientists who work with the skulls, but also the people or communities who ask for their ancestral remains back, or different religious, spiritual, or cultural mortuary practices. We conduct interviews and also invite them to contribute to the way we design the project. So it's a kind of a mutual, very good. Then we have also the historical perspective, which we deal mainly through narratives, so not only the narratives of the scientists who collected the skulls, but also the narratives of those who were collected. We also work on the audience, when the exhibition is on, audience perspective through the education program that is in and also around and actually also after the exhibition, because we're also planning an education program that will run at the University of Edinburgh after the exhibition. And then, of course, we have the reflexive perspectives. So on one hand, me as an artist and photographer reflecting on the role of photography and ethics of display and photography, but also the scientists in our team, physical anthropologists or social cultural anthropologists, reflecting on the legacy of their field. And in addition, we are organizing a two-day conference that will coincide with the opening of the exhibition that actually happens exactly 1 year and 1 day from today, 28th of June, in Edinburgh. So you are all welcome to come to the exhibition. Yeah. So these, for example, are two of my recent interviewees in Montreal, Canada last month. And if the interviewees wish, I show them the panorama, of course, a very small print of the panorama. And then in the interview, I talk with them about the image, and I also ask them if they, as visitors, would agree to see it, would like to see it, and also what they think about other people seeing it or not. And as I knew that I only have 15, 20 minutes for this talk, I kind of made the notes for myself, but I did it on the slide. So things that can also maybe come up with your questions, hopefully. And I'm really looking forward to have some feedback and questions. Thank you very much.